Okay, welcome everyone to our quarterly meeting with Pro and Montgomery County. And I want to thank George Musty for coordinating this. He's been our main contact point at the county, and really anyone can reach out to him anytime they have a problem, right, George? Would you like to say anything?
Well, we are happy to be here again to another session.
$100 of you.
Hello?
Go ahead. I'm muting
Yeah.
folks if there's an issue.
Yeah, okay. So we are happy to be here again to continue the dialogue with the pro industry. We appreciate the fact that you like and you are proactive and you are reliable partners in our efforts to enforce the codes and administer the codes. And we always probably will find topics to discuss on a time in every quarter or so. And today we are happy that we identify a topic which is mostly related to land development division and what they do. And Linda Kobylski is the chief there. She kindly arranged for her staff to participate and hopefully answer all the questions you may have regarding that. If you still have questions regarding to the building, building permit or building issues, we are here and we are ready to answer your questions. But I think the emphasis on this meeting will be on land development issues. So thank you very much for inviting us, and it's a pleasure again, David and your crew, to deal with you on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you, George. As we get started, can we introduce ourselves very quickly, because there's a lot of us here, but I'd like Linda to know who the audience is. So I'll start out. I'm David Merrick. I'm a contractor in Montgomery County and Northwest DC, and I've been a member of Pro for over 30 years. Angela?
Sorry. I'm Angela Hubbard, Executive Director of Pro Mid-Atlantic. And David, do you have a grid where you can see everyone? I'm in a speaker view. Do you mind calling on the next person?
Yeah. Heidi.
Hi, everybody. I'm Heidi Benham. I'm the manager of the well and septic section here at DPS.
Okay, Melvin. Melvin is a permit expediter with Landis Construction in Washington, DC. Thank you, Melvin. And next to him is John Tabor. John is president of Tabor Construction in Montgomery County, a longtime friend of mine, and he's unmuted.
And that's Tabor Design Build. I'm the founder of that. And we're a design build firm in Montgomery County.
Okay.
And vice president of our organization.
Hey.
Thank you.
Next is it Atik, A-T-I-Q?
Yes, this is Atik Pancheri, and I'm the public right-of-way manager, the DPS.
Okay. And Sonia.
Good afternoon. I'm Sonia Burke. I'm the community outreach manager for the Department of Permitting Services in Montgomery County.
Oh, thank you. And WeDOT.
Yeah, I'm Tom Whedon. I am the manager of the sediment control and stormwater management inspection staff, the field guys.
Okay. Melanie Morales.
I'm an architect at Pinehurst Design Build in Montgomery County.
Okay. Man, everything's jumping around on my screen. I've lost track of where we are.
Did you get the TJ?
TJ.
Hey, thank you all for doing this. I'm TJ. I'm the Chief Design Officer at BOA.
Okay.
Did we get to Elizabeth?
Nope.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm Elizabeth. I'm with Case Design Remodeling and one of their architects.
Okay,
And
Case. Okay.
John,
John Burrows.
Hi, I'm John Burrows. I'm with New Leaf Collaborative, and I'm an architect in Montgomery County, Virginia, and DC.
Daniel, and Emily, we're coming to you next.
Did you say Daniel Carrero?
Either one, we have two Daniels.
Well, this is Daniel Carrero. I'm on the phone because for some reason the passcode's not working for Zoom. I'm
Capital
with
T,
House
capital
Home.
R, capital O.
Yeah, all caps, see if that works for you. And what
I
company?
tried that.
I'm sorry.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
I am with House to Home Solutions. We're a design build company.
Oh, thanks. Good to see you, Daniel.
Okay, and the other Daniel.
Hey, you guys, Daniel Creambill here, DK Contractors, Montgomery County, in pro for about 14 years, I guess. Nice to see you all.
Yeah.
Hi, Daniel. Let's see, I think we're Emily and then Lee.
I am Emily Shoulder. I'm a project architect at Landis Architects and Builders in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. And Lee?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lee with House to Home Solutions. We're a contractor out in Montgomery County.
And then we have someone from Sun Design.
Yes, this is Julia Ripple. I'm a designer with Sun Design.
Thanks, Julia. And then Colleen?
Hi, I'm a project designer with Landis in DC.
Great. Let's see. That's the end of my
I think
list.
we're done.
Tamar,
So,
Tamar, was there a Tamar?
Yes, sorry, we just joined, and I'm also here with my colleague, Lisa.
Hi. Hi, Lisa. Lisa, what's your last name?
Iezeerska.
Thank you for spelling it. If we missed you, Jennifer, did we miss you or Jen?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Jen Arricchetti, Assistant Director of Construction with Landis Architects Builders in DC.
Woohoo, Landis team is in the house.
yeah, is anybody working over there?
We're half day tomorrow too. We have our company picnic.
That's great. Anybody that we missed, we want you to have a chance to say who you are. All right.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. So let's not waste any more time. Our guest is Linda Kobylski. Please help me say that.
You're not the first one. It's Linda Kobylski.
Kobylski.
Nice, strong Polish name, Kobylski. And I am the Land Development Division Chief with Permitting Services here in Montgomery County. Thank you guys for having us today. Just a little bit of background on me. I have been with Montgomery County now for 8.5 years. I was originally hired as the permitting manager for land development. So I will tell you, if you have questions about permit submittals, applications, plan uploads, things of that nature, fees, I could probably help you with all of that as well. I have a very strong background in customer service. About 3 years ago, I was promoted to the Chief of Land Development. I am not a civil engineer. The folks that work with me on our team are civil engineers, most of them, and I'm very fortunate to have some of them here today. My background is business. Sorry. I have a business degree from Virginia Tech with an emphasis in marketing management. So now you know where I'm from. I have a very, very strong customer service background, which is probably why I have the position I have today. Anyway, it's very nice to be here with you guys. We have several topics we want to get to. So if you want, I'll just go ahead and dive right in, if you're okay with that. Yep. One of the first, probably one of the easier things that we want to discuss today is the requirement for a restoration of the public right-of-way permit. Generally, we ask for these types of permits. It's almost could be a walkthrough permit. There's really no real plan review. It's just Montgomery County's guarantee that any work that's happening at that property does no damage to whatever infrastructure we may have in the public right-of-way. That could be the driveway apron. It could be a curb, a sidewalk, if it exists. It could even be grass. So think about your larger projects when you have big pieces of equipment or a dump truck, even a dumpster perhaps going over the right of way, again, any of those things I just mentioned, and let's say your truck jumps the curb because you didn't use a driveway that exists or something like that, and we end up with a cracked or a damaged curb, that permit gives us the guarantee that the contractor is going to repair any damages before you finish up your project. So, Angela, I did upload or you put into the chat a document. It's called Right of Way, ROW Restoration Policy. If you want to share that, you can. It basically outlines when we're probably going to ask you to provide or to apply for one of these restoration permits. And my subject matter expert is on the call. That's Atik Panshiri. He introduced himself a few minutes ago. And he can explain any of this information to you in more detail if needed. But generally speaking, there's some information here at the top that again talks about why you need this permit. And generally the bond that you have to post is about $1,000. We may ask for a larger bond if we think that the scope of work is such that it could even create more damage than the $1,000 bond could cover. But generally they're $1,000. And as you can, if you scroll down just a little bit, we give you some parameters when this is going to be asked for. So bullet item number A, whether there's a driveway on the property or not for access, we basically said if the proposed new floor area is less than 1,000 square feet, or you're putting in a new foundation or slab that is less than 400 cubic feet, you're not going to have to get a restoration of the permit. We don't think you're going to have big, heavy equipment that's going to do much damage to the right of way or any damage. But if it exceeds those parameters, we are going to ask you for one. So that's one item here that explains when you may ask, we're going to ask for it. Secondly, when we talk about the additional square footage is 1,000 square feet or more, it could be a single addition that's 1,000 square feet. It could be an addition that's 2 levels that is 500 square feet for each level of your addition that totals 1,000 square feet. We're going to ask you for that restoration permit. Also, if you're demolishing something and it's over, it has to be, we want it to be at least a 500 square foot structure or larger before we'll ask you for a demolition permit, or for a restoration permit because you're demolishing something. So, you know, if somebody's going to demolish a 400 square foot shed, we don't need you to pull a restoration permit. But if you're tearing down a house or a very large addition, we're going to ask for that. This is all pretty self-explanatory. I think Atik has created a really good document here to give you guidance. And before we open it up to questions for me or Atik, I will also say that the permit technicians, when you submit a building permit, so you're going to do one of these additions, for example, when that permit comes in, the permit technicians who traditionally are responsible for land development permits, they're going to review your scope of work. They're going to take a look at that building permit, and they will reach out to you and let you know that you do need to get a restoration permit, or you need to get a small land disturbance permit because you're moving a certain amount of earth. Or if they look at it and see that there is no requirement, your project doesn't rise to the threshold of these requirements that you're looking at, they'll waive those on your building permit. So giving you this information up front so that you know what the thresholds are in order for your ultimate permit issuance for that building permit to go through faster and smoother and all of that, you can be proactive and go ahead and apply for these permits, these land development permits, even before you go and get your application in for your building permit. Because if they are required, if the restoration of the right-of-way permit is required, you will not get your building permit issued until that permit is approved and issued. Does that make sense? And does anybody have any questions about that? Matik, do you have anything you'd like to add to what I just said?
Is there,
No, I really don't have anything else. I mean, you explained it perfectly. This is really to help the industry. We're trying to create this cheat sheet for our permit technicians so that there's no holdup. When you submit your building permit, they look at it, okay, this could be waived and there's no holding or waiting for a right of way to approve your project. Be done with it. But if you come in and it's a restoration of right of way is needed, this will give them say, oh, okay, by the way, you're applying for your building permit. You also need a right of way restoration bond to post $1,000 and pay the fee. Be done in one step instead of waiting and waiting. And so where's my building permit? So, oh, you don't have a right of way permit. They say, wait a minute, nobody told me that we need the right of way permit. So that's to help the industry and you guys.
this is David Merrick. Many of the people on the call are architects or they're actively involved in preparing the plan set that gets submitted. Is there anything that we should put on the cover sheet to help you make this evaluation? You know, should we, for instance, make a statement that we are under 1,000 square feet and 400 cubic feet? Or are you going to do it the hard way and look at, no matter what, you're going to look at the plans? But is there anything that you'd like to see us as professionals put on the cover sheet to help you?
I think your the attached plan and then little explanation, probably the cover letter would be helpful to our permit technicians who process your application. To say, okay, we're doing this addition or we're doing this restoration. It's only internal, it's only does not require any demolition or anything that exceeds your threshold. And it will help them and expedite your process. Absolutely. I do agree that will help.
I agree with that too, especially when we're talking about permit technicians, and especially if your project is not just a simple one-story addition. If you have several stories that you're adding onto that home, it would probably help them to say, yes, we have a two-story. Sometimes you're just putting a story on top of an existing addition, right? So it would be helpful to add a little bit of a note there in your job description. So when you go online and apply for that building permit, you always put in what your scope of work is. You could put the note right in there, and that would truly help the permit techs, I think. So that's a very good suggestion. Thank you, David.
Yeah, we've heard this from, I think mostly in DC, the value of the written description that we provide on the plans, that it, you know, in the beginning, it was something that I don't think anybody ever read, but now it's becoming the Bible. It's the first thing that the plan reviewers are reading. So we have a responsibility to put an accurate description in and try to help them out. Maybe it'll get processed quicker.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Any other questions from the group? All right, what's next up?
Okay, so the next topic, which is you're interested in, David, is when we require a drainage plan as part of a building project. Angela, the first document that you might want to share is the one entitled "When a Drainage Plan is Required." And in full disclosure, this document that you guys are looking at, I'm sharing it with you, but it was created to give guidance to the permit technicians who are you know, again, I just explained, it's just like with the restoration of the right of way, the permit technicians are going to open up that building plan and look at your application and your notes and all of that you put in there, and they're going to determine whether or not a drainage plan is required. They will either waive it if it doesn't meet these certain parameters, or they will contact you to say you need a drainage plan with this. So we created the document to help the PTs. It's sort of like a little cheat sheet for them. But I also provided this to Georgia's plan reviewers, because one of the complaints we used to receive, I don't know if we're still getting these types of complaints now, but was the architect uploads the plans, they come in, they go all the way through zoning, they go through George's plan review staff for approval. And then there's that pesky drainage review outstanding. And there are times when the administrative staff has not even reached out to you to say this is needed, and you thought you were ready to get your permit. So it is a review that automatically loads if there's an addition. If it is an addition type of work, the review loads in our system, and it has to be satisfied, either waived or approved, for your permit to progress. So giving this information to George's team, to his reviewers, if they have this information in front of them, they can also, if it's just to be waived, they could go in and waive the review instead of waiting on a permit tech to do it, so that your permit can continue forward and get issued and all that stuff. So I'm providing it today because I think it's good for you guys too. It just gives you some parameters when we require it, when we don't. And again, you can be proactive in that when you are submitting your plans for the construction of that addition, you can also include a drainage plan with that. You've already prepared the plan, it's in there, and then it's up to a teak. Again, this is something his team usually handles as far as reviewing that drainage plan. And then they will get in there, they'll review it just at the same time that the building reviewers are doing their review. And hopefully everything kind of happens at the same time, and we get your permit out of here. So just like the other document we just looked at, this is just giving you some guidance as to when these things are usually required. I think you know, David, if you have exceed 400 square feet of, we base it on roof area, and it's on a lot that is less than 15,000 square feet, you're going to need a drainage plan. If the property is over that amount, if it's 15,000 or more, you're not going to need it. So keep that in mind. And I've given you some examples here of when it's required and when it's not. And you can read this on your own. The other thing, I don't know how many of you do ADUs, but if it's obviously if it's an addition, ADU, it's still an addition. So we're going to look at that anyway. If it's detached, no matter what size that ADU is, you need a drainage plan. So
Now,
that's the caveat with that. If any of you actually do accessory dwelling units.
can you scroll back up to that? It says accessory dwelling for a detached, okay. Accessory dwelling unit, yes, all right. I just did a shed that's detached. That's not gonna have to.
That's an accessory structure.
Structure, yeah.
Accessory dwelling unit means someone's going to live in it.
ADU, yeah.
Yeah, someone's going to live in it. So for those, I think the drainage requirement for a detached, for an ADU, was put in there because a decision was made not to require full-on stormwater management for these structures. So we do want to make sure drainage is being looked at, and that construction of this other living unit on the property is not going to have some negative effect on nearby properties, particularly downstream properties. So you do have to do a drainage plan for any detached accessory dwelling unit. I want to say that again, detached accessory dwelling unit, you must always do it. Obviously, if the ADU is all internal, you're renovating a basement or something like that, you're not going to need a drainage plan. And the addition ADU will be treated like any other addition. If it's 400 square feet or more of new roof area, you'll have to address drainage. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Any questions from the group? All right.
Like, no, okay. So, and then if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see that the examples in here, I have a 400 square foot addition, but the lot's 12,000 square feet. It requires a drainage plan. So this is really to protect the small lot owners, okay, or the people that live next to these small lots. If I put in that same 400 square foot addition on a lot that's 40,000 square feet or over 15,000 square feet, you will not need to address drainage. Okay. And then I go on to give you some more examples. So the lots less than 15,000 square feet, you have a 400 square foot second story added to an existing 400 square foot structure. So your footprint's already 400 square feet. You're just putting a second story on top of it. Your net increase is 0 because you already had a 400 square foot roof there. Now you're putting an addition on top of it. So you would not need to address drainage. So I'm not going to read these things to you item by item. You guys can do that on your own. If you have any questions about that, I think it's pretty straightforward. But David, going back to your question about putting notes on your application, this would be super helpful because sometimes you might be putting an addition on the house. You're also putting a, you know, a portico or a roof over the front of the house. Any new roof, you need to add all of those things together. And if it exceeds or reaches 400 square feet of new roof and the property is considered a small lot, you need to address drainage. They're not standalone, right? We need to combine them all together. So that would really help the PTs. I know I've seen plans sometimes where I can't tell, is this existing or is it new? Because it may not be labeled properly. And especially if you're putting, you know, an addition on top of an existing footprint, that would be very helpful to just give them a note saying what the net increase of new roof area is. I think that would be helpful.
I know, you know, most of us put calculations on our plans already for square feet of addition and alteration, just to make sure the permit fee is calculated correctly. But that's square footage of floor area, and you are being specific. This is square footage of roof area.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to add a column to our chart.
The other thing that I added on here for, again, this was for staff, was when, you know, if you don't know what the size of the lot is, I don't know if you don't, but if you don't, there's a, you know, you can just go to SStat and pull up the property and see the lot size right there. So any questions about this? Atik?
Linda.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Angela.
This is Angela. I'm sorry. I just want to let people know the link to this Google folder containing all of these documents is in the chat. And then following this, if you're registered for the meeting today, you'll receive an email with the meeting recording and these documents. So if for some reason you didn't get a chance to register, you can put your email in the chat and I will make sure you get these documents.
Thank you, Angela. The next document, and Atik, I'm going to put you on the spot. You probably need to address this.
There's something on what the measure is for the roof area. It's what we measure is from wall to wall of addition. It's not the net roof, which is the overhang, and others that may not be habitable. You don't live there, so we don't count or measure the overhangs. It's just the net area of addition, which is from roof wall to wall. That's how we measure it, and that's how always been reported to us, and that's what we're taking the measurement.
What if they're adding 500 square foot porch, a front porch of roof? It's not habitable, but it's drainage.
It's required, Jim.
If it's attached.
If it's attached, because that's considered an addition when you add that roof onto the porch.
Oh, I see. Atik was talking about a detached structure. Okay.
So it is not the roof area, it is the footprint mostly.
Correct, and that's what I was referring to.
All right, thank you.
So that was the point I was trying to clear up. So thank you for clearing that up. And, you know, if anyone missed it, that example of a porch, when you create a porch, that's actually a room as far as the zoning people are concerned, right?
Yeah.
So. Well, that gives me a little bit of relief. As the call was starting, I shared with them that I'm working on a set of plans right now that's more than 400 square feet, but I missed out on the right-of-way permit. I didn't meet those requirements, so I dodged one bullet, but this one hit me. I'm going to need a drainage plan.
So does anyone else have any questions about that?
Linda, do you want to address the fact that if they exceed 5,000 square feet of disturbance with that, that it would get pushed into an engineered plan and address stormwater management and or drainage at that point in time?
Yes, that's a good point. Thank you, Tom. And actually, I meant to send you a link to our, we have a page on our website that addresses drainage, and it addresses all of that as well. Couple of things. If you do disturb more than 5,000 square feet, regardless, you'll have to get an engineered plan, and that plan does address drainage anyway. So you would not need a separate drainage plan per se, like you would for a standalone, new addition and things like that. And I'll send that to you, Angela, so that you can also put that in the whatever we're doing, Google files.
Perfect. Yes, I can add it in there. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a link there. Our website has if you go to our website at the very top, there's a tab called permits. And if you click on that under land development, or actually, I think it's under right-of-way permits, there is a link literally called drainage plan. So if you click on that, it takes you to a very nice page that tells you what it's for, why it's there, all that good stuff. So I'll send that to you, and it can explain it a little bit more. I do have a document that outlines drainage plan requirements. It's pretty lengthy. I'm certainly not going to go through this today, but if anybody has any questions at all about how your plan needs to be prepared, Atik, you can hopefully explain this to them and give them some pointers if you're seeing things that, where people are making common mistakes and things like that. The document I'm referring to, Angela, is drainage plan requirements. If you want to switch over to that one. It has information in here about dry wells and computations. It's a 24-page document. So Atik, this, I believe, is your document, or at least your folks use this. So it talks about dry wells. You can see rain barrels, cisterns. There's all kinds of information in here because there's a variety of ways to meet the drainage ordinance requirement if your project has to meet drainage requirements. So this is to help prepare the plans that Atik and his group are going to review.
I see the date on this is June 09, so this is not a new policy.
No, and it is currently on our website.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to see that it was so old too. I was like, wow, this is an old document. But
I was going to say nothing's changed, huh?
I don't believe so. Atik, can you please chime in on this? And
Well,
I'm assuming this is still current.
I'm not really sure where you got this one, but we have updated. Not much has changed since 2009, but we have an updated document. I'm not sure if it has gotten onto the website. Well, we have updated. I believe it was.
Is this it here? Drainage inspection?
No, that's not it. No, okay. That's not it. Atik, it's literally under some of your forms for under right of way. That's where I found it. It's the title was lot to lot runoff and drainage requirements. So anyway, if this is not the most recent one, we will get you that most recent one. And certainly clean up our website, but there's still some good information that's in here that I think is still applicable. But we do, if we have added stuff, we need to make sure you get a comprehensive document.
I don't think that the main point of this document has changed from 2009, but there were some tweaks that we did. I think we did it last year, or if not this year, it was last year. Definitely after 2020. So it has to be either 21 or 22.
Okay. So yeah, if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see what the requirements are. I can talk a little bit about, I already did this a little bit. technology wise, when you upload your building construction plans, as I said earlier, if you know that you're going to need drainage addressed, ideally you're going to upload that drainage plan at the same time you do all your construction plans. Land development, unfortunately, does not have a task within project docs. I'm assuming everyone on this call is familiar with that. If you do business with Montgomery County, you must be familiar with it. We don't have a task on these types of building permits. So it's kind of a, I don't want to say manual process, because we can review them electronically, but sometimes the TEACS reviewers may ask you to, you know, they'll go in sometimes and they'll make comments directly on the plan, and it'll go back to you when your other construction drawings go back. But I would say the majority of the time, the plan review process for that drainage plan is sort of outside of project docs. The reviewer who gets assigned to review it, if they do have corrections for you, they may very well mark up the plan and email it back to you saying, here are my corrections, email me back your corrected drawing. And then once they're satisfied with it, they'll upload it to project docs and put their approval stamp on it. I just want to let you know it's a little bit of a convoluted process because we don't have a task in project docs. So, and again, if any of you have submitted one of these to us, you probably already know that, but just keep that in mind.
Well, that's a good graph that you're scrolling past right there. To say when you're doing it. I think most of us are familiar with what goes into the drainage plan. It's been the trigger points that it helps to get cleared up. And hear this all again.
Okay.
So is the small land disturbance permit a separate topic?
I hadn't really planned to talk about that today. I don't have any documents to share with you, but we can certainly talk about it if you want. I had invited Mark Etheridge on the call in case, you know, you had like really specific questions about that, but I know enough to be dangerous, and Tom Whedon, who was a plans reviewer in water resources for many years, could help as well. The small land disturbance permit is basically an administrative permit. There's no real plan review. It's you giving us a rudimentary drawing of the site, showing us where you're going to be working with a what does Mark call it? A narrative of what work you're performing. So if you're just grading your property, you're moving dirt around, or in a lot of cases, for you guys specifically, let's say you're digging out for a basement and you disturb enough earth, or you have enough earth movement that you
What's
need
enough?
Enough is 100 cubic yards of earth movement, which is a lot of earth. So you would have to be digging out a pretty substantial amount, or 5,000 square feet of disturbance. And that one means you need to go get yourself an engineered sediment control permit. And I will say that when you're talking about disturbance, 5,000 square feet of disturbance, that means all disturbance. That could mean taking out tree canopy. It could mean killing grass because you're running trucks back and forth over existing grass. And certainly it can mean digging and grading and moving earth around. The 100 cubic yards of earth movement, typically we see that when the construction that you're doing is causing you to dig, think swimming pool, you're installing a swimming pool. Usually that requires a lot of earth movement, and we will allow a small land permit for that, unless, again, it exceeds 5,000 square feet. The only caveat to the SLDA, they're easy. Again, you tell us what you're doing, you put a narrative in there, and then the inspector, once the permit gets issued, you work with the inspector to install the silt fence or whatever they need you to do. That's generally how that's handled. Tom, you want to chime in on this since it covers both what you did in your past life and what you do today with inspections?
Yeah, there's two things that require the need for a sediment control permit, and what you said was the 100 cubic yards of excavation. and or the 5,000 square feet of disturbance. So if you're putting your addition on and your only disturbance is you're going to dig out for your basement, you're putting a basement in for the addition and a dig out for there, and you're just doing a little respread around, you're under the 5,000, you can do a small land disturbance permit, which is that administrative type permit. If you're doing your addition and digging out and you respread it over 5,000 and you're replacing your driveway and doing some other stuff and you exceed that 5,000 square feet of disturbance, that kicks you into the engineering plan where you're possibly addressing stormwater management and drainage and all those other things that may go along with it. So the 5,000 square feet is what's key. Because that's not an administrative permit anymore at that point in time. That kicks you into full-blown engineering and raises the cost and the time and everything else.
Is that the sediment control permit when you get an engineered plan?
Yeah, the small land, the SLDA, the small land disturbance activity permit, and the engineered sediment control are both sediment control permits. One, the SLDA is just an administrative permit. Hey, I'm doing some grading around my yard. I'm digging out for my my addition, but I'm less than 5,000. That's just a narrative, an application, a smaller fee. You, as the architect or anybody, can submit that. The homeowner can submit it. But once you exceed that 5,000 for the type of work you guys do of total land disturbance, that kicks you into needing to hire the engineer, addressing stormwater management, addressing drainage, and those type of things.
Can I just go back for a second on the calculations for the land disturbance? So when we're doing that, we include any of the volume, any of the access around, if it's an addition, the 10-foot from the perimeter of the addition, and as you mentioned, any other storage on site facilities, that kind of thing.
Yes, again, your volume is going to be what you excavate for your addition. Your disturbance is going to be your access, your respread of that disturbance. And again, if you're redoing a driveway or if you're putting, doing some other stuff, maybe you have to expand in these small lots, or on larger lots, you may have to expand your septic system, things like that. So that would be considered disturbance. And any of that, all of that would be considered disturbance.
Okay.
And we should show the disturbance on our plan someplace.
No, you don't need to just show it on your plans. It does, you'll need to calculate it and put it on your application. It will be part of your application process. And I think that's where they determine, okay, again, you come in at 4,999, and with 150 cubic yards of excavation, all you need to do is get a small land disturbance permit, because the only reason you needed a permit in that was because of the excavation. Now, a lot of them come, a lot of the come in and then they dig their hole and they do that, and then they respread it, and then they accidentally, not meaning to, but they go over the 5,000. And then that could, depending upon how bad it is, trigger the need to move into a sediment control plan.
And one other thing about the SLDA, they are quick and easy permits usually. But if the property is over 40,000 square feet, we have to send it to Park and Planning for forest conservation. You either need to get a letter from them exempting the project from forest conservation, or worst case scenario, a forest conservation plan approval. So that's generally the only time you see the SLDAs holding up movement on your building permit. Because again, the SLDA would need to be issued and approved before we would sign off on your building permit to go forward. So if that's the case, because the lot is large and you need this SLDA, get in touch with Park and Planning. Go ahead and get in touch with them and be proactive in that.
When our permits get submitted and they go to the permit tech for that initial review, is there a separate land development guy who's doing the same thing for land development, or is it George's techs that are looking at it first and determining if it goes to land development or not?
the permit technicians are now all in one big division called customer support and outreach. I will tell you that the intent with that was to cross-train the permit technicians so that if you submitted your building permit, they could take care of all your land development stuff too. That hasn't really been accomplished yet because it's a big thing to do. These people have been, when they were hired, they were specialized in land development or residential construction or fire, electrical, mechanical. So it'll be a long time before those folks are completely multifunctional. Let me say it that way. So when a building permit comes in, y'all know Gail Lucas. You've talked to Gail Lucas. She used to be kind of in charge of all the building permits. Now her group handles new commercial building and new homes. Crystal Roberts, who is the land development permit intake manager, she is now responsible for what we refer to as residential construction intake. That's the additions, the sheds, the decks, things like that. So the good news is Crystal is in charge of permit techs now who handle small residential permits and land development permits. So that piece of the cross training is probably going to happen before the other stuff does, because those guys work very closely together. But right now, the application comes in. One of those land development permit techs is going to review that building application and tell you what's needed. And hopefully you're getting email notifications from the building permit techs. So if it's a building application and when it gets submitted, you should get a point of contact email from the permit tech who's handling your permit to just let you know, I'm your point of contact. If you have any questions about anything from this point going forward, you can get in touch with me and I will track down someone who can help you if I can't. So hopefully you are getting those emails. If you're not, let me know. Does someone have a question? I thought I heard someone.
I think that explanation was very helpful to us understanding. It seems like when we submit a permit, the tech review takes longer than the review now. And I understand it's because the techs are doing more of the administrative checking first. But,
well, I think it's more, well, there's two things. People don't understand that every building permit that comes through DPS, pretty much every one of them, land development is taking a look at it. Almost all of them. So that takes time. It also takes time away from processing and issuing land development permits. So sometimes those sign-offs on the building permits take a back seat to, the land development permits getting processed and issued and all of that. They do it. The other problem we have, again, is that the land development permit technicians and reviewers, for that matter, do not have a task in project docs that will remind them, you've got work to do over here, you've got work to do. They receive an email notification when that permit gets initiated. And they do have a process in place to kind of track their work and keep track of those email notifications so that they can go in and do their sign-offs in a timely way. But it doesn't always happen. You're right. I think that's one of the problems we need to resolve at DPS for customer service improvement. And we're working on it. And some of that is cross-training of these folks. So just because you're a building permit tech, you're sitting there screening the application anyway for fees and everything else. You should be able to handle some of these uncomplicated, non-complex land development issues. Let me say it that way. So we're working on that.
well, it seems to me if we clearly communicated we're under, where's my number? Whatever the numbers are on our cover sheet, it would be easy for them to say, okay, well, this is easy. Let's get rid of it.
Anyway, we will work on that. Okay. And hopefully you'll see some, and doing even things like this, having these outreach things with our customers and our partners will help you help you too, right? Helping you get the application in correctly and giving us good information that will hopefully expedite our sign-offs and reviews and everything else. It's good. I want to say one more thing before we get off the subject, because I do want to give Heidi time to talk. Is this, I think this is over at 3 o'clock. The drainage plan that we talked about earlier, there is a document in the files there that addresses drainage inspections. I know you guys are architects, but if you're contractors too, it's really, really important if there is a drainage plan component to your project that you make sure your contractor calls for those inspections. Because what we've also found is the whole thing gets done. Let's say you had to put some dry wells in and they go ahead and install the dry wells and none of those drainage inspections are happening. You are supposed to get a pre-construction meeting before you start any work with the land development folks if there's a drainage plan. So just keep that in mind. We have George and Jim Sackett, their team, they've been helping us try to get that word out. If there is a drainage component, we're putting cards in with the placards that we send out for additions. We're doing all kinds of stuff to educate people that it's not just put the dry well in, you need to get this stuff inspected too. Because I know Jim has called me, they get all their inspections done and the permit's not finaling for the building. And it's because these drainage inspections are sitting out there.
When we get a permit, we get a permit checklist where they've just checked off the boxes. These are the permits that are required. Is land development on that list?
Yes. Yes, George updated his, you're talking about the inspections checklist, what's required?
Yeah, what's required, yeah.
Yes, that should be checked off. If there's a drainage approval in our permitting system, the reviewers are supposed to be checking that box, telling you need drainage.
Yep, we did that.
Yeah, thank you, George.
You're welcome.
Thank you, yeah. And I mean, we take that information and put it right onto our schedule for the project.
Yeah, yeah. And then after that first pre-con, the land development inspector that comes out is going to tell your contractor, hey, once you do this, you need to call me again. And then after that's done, you need to call me again because there are actually 3 inspections that occur with that. So anyway, hopefully that's working. So if there aren't any other questions about drainage and SLDAs, can we move on to well and septic? Yes. Let Heidi give her presentation.
Heidi, we're all yours.
All right. Hi, everyone. So the main thing that I wanted to emphasize today is that if you have a project where the property is served by a well and a septic system, or either one, but more so a septic system, that
permitting. Like for Montgomery County, there's sediment control or like special submittals.
Please mute yourself.
Land stuff, but for DC, is there anything? So like if we're doing
Chris Williams.
Hello.
Is there any sediment control submittals and we're doing like a new driveway?
Well, Heidi, we'll get to, there we go.
Okay. I wasn't sure if this person was talking to me or what was going on. Okay.
Pay attention.
So yes, specifically if a property has a septic system, you want, before you start doing any work, you want to, number one, pull the septic permit records. They are available online through e-services on the DPS website. Most of the septic permit records are. Or you can just email me directly or one of our staff and we can help you get those records. Because that record is going to tell you a couple things. It's going to tell you how many bedrooms the septic is approved for, which therefore is going to dictate whether you can add bedrooms to the house or, you know, whether or not you're going to need to meet other requirements in order to have the number of bedrooms that your client wishes to have. I can't tell you how many times we get a building permit in for review and the contractor or the architect didn't even know or realize that the house had a septic system. So, you know, they've gotten really far into the process and unfortunately, many times we have to put a halt to that until they meet our requirements. So I sent a couple documents that I feel are the most important, which include our minimum setback requirements. So obviously you also want to make sure that your proposed addition, improvement, whatever it is, meets the physical setback requirements from the well, from the septic tank, the drain fields, any component of the septic system. I also included our guidelines for additions and improvements, which basically just gives a breakdown of what is required depending on what we have on record for the septic system. So again, what we have on record for the septic system is going to dictate what you can and can't do. And I also included our guidelines for perk testing in the event that your project requires perk testing, which is to basically, that's for new construction, but also if you have to establish a roof for certain types of additions. And then the other is a habitable space worksheet, and that is related to the guidelines for additions. This is a worksheet that will help you demonstrate to us that your proposed project does not require any expansion of the existing septic system. So that'll make a little more sense once you read that guideline. So again, I want the takeaway to be, if your project, if you're working on with a property and it has a septic system, call me, email me, call 311, you'll get to me, and then we can help guide you through the process. And we're more than happy to do what we call kind of a pre-review of your project. So if you have just preliminary floor plans or anything really, and you want to run it by us and say, hey, you know, I don't really know if this is going to be okay. When I submit, I want to know that you guys are going to be able to approve this. We're more than happy to look at it, because again, we would rather do that up front and have you know everything before, you know, you draw up the floor plans that you intend to submit for the building permit.
Heidi, we have a question in the chat. Sun Design wants to know how they can find out information about a property, whether or not it has a well and septic. Would the SDAT maps show you that?
Unfortunately, SDAT does not have that information. The quickest thing I think to do is if you go to mcatlas.org, some of you may be familiar with that website. There, you can put in a property address, and then it'll give you a bunch of details about that property. And those details will include the water and sewer categories. And then that will tell you whether or not the property is served by well or septic. You do have to be careful because it's not always up to date. So for instance, it may show that the property has public sewer, but if it's an old house, it may still actually have a septic system. So if you're not sure, again, the best thing to do is to contact our section.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. It's 3 o'clock, and unfortunately, we have a hard stop on this meeting. The Zoom is
Hey,
being
David.
used by somebody else, right?
David, I actually moved that meeting to Teams. So if you want to continue, I hate to have people come on and not get the information that they're
Okay.
planning for. So it's moved,
Okay.
and I'll just let them know that you're going to be a little late.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, everyone. And the link is in the chat to share the document. So you can share from there. I'll just leave this going and it'll be recorded.
Okay. This was very comprehensive. Any last questions?
Heidi, I was wondering, we're limited on bedrooms with the septic system, but what's the difference between a bedroom and an office?
Okay, so that's a good question. We go around with this a lot. So the difference is what it comes down to in our code is a closet. So if it is at least 70 square feet in size, if it has a legal means of egress, and it has a closet, then it's a bedroom. I understand that you may have a room that has windows and a closet, and you may not be intending to use it as a bedroom, but for us, it's a bedroom. So the key there is really the closet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. This is your last chance, gang. Who's got any more questions? Michael, they're meeting on Teams. Michael Sari is our president of Pro. Goodbye, Mike. Linda, thank you very much for taking the time, and thank you for all the members of your staff. And it's really encouraging to see how responsive you guys are, and that when we do have a problem, all we've got to do is reach out and somebody's there to help us.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure being here today. Thank you for having us, and invite us back anytime you need us or have information to share.
Yeah. Well, we haven't figured out what the topic for the next quarterly meeting will be, but we'll come up with something good. If anyone has any ideas for what you'd like us to cover, please get in touch with me. Thank you all very much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you.